The Team House with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
And it was almost like they were, giving us the middle finger in that respect.
John, I wanted to ask you about that picture in your book of the 500-pound tiger.
Those tigers were some of the scariest creatures that roamed those jungles. There was so much food available for them, not with American bodies, but with NVA and VC bodies, that they no longer had to hunt. And they got a taste for human flesh, and that's what they looked for. And I'm sure it was a lot easier to hunt humans than it was to hunt elk and whatever, and bush pig and whatever else they went for. And that particular tiger had killed a Marine a few nights before. This guy had just gotten married, as a matter of fact, and he just returned from leave at home as a sergeant, and he was with 3rd Force Recon. And he was with a team, I think it was a 4-man team, and that tiger had come up on them in the middle of the night and come right into their little 360. He used to sleep like the spokes on a wheel. You know, you put your equipment in the middle and you'd sleep to the point where you could touch one another. So that's how closely aligned they were. And you always had a man on guard, of course, an hour on, and then you wake somebody else up. But the fellow on guard didn't even hear this tiger as he came up the trail, grabbed this sergeant through the chest and shoulder and dragged him 200 yards down the trail. And they couldn't find him until the next morning. And it was a horrible thing. I mean, the guy was half eaten by that point, but they shot the tiger while he was still with this man. And that's the tiger they brought back and strung up. That you see a photograph of in the book. It's a male, and it does, you're right, they weighed about something like 500 pounds.
How did they find that tiger?
It was there the next morning, still eating this guy in the trail. It didn't move. And they came down the trail first light, and there he was. And they shot him as they came up on him. Yeah, it was really sad.
Did your patrols ever get stalked by tigers while you were out there?
Once it did. I was with 3 other guys, and we were up in an area north of Charlie 2, real thick jungle and a lot of elephant grass. And there were 4 of us, and we felt like we were being followed. It's just one of those things you kind of sense. The noise would stop; it'd be really quiet. Then it would be moving on, and stuff would start happening again. In the air, you could hear jungle moving around you. The birds and whatnot. And then you'd stop, and everything would stop with you. And you wondered what on earth was doing this. Was it somebody behind us that these animals that were picking up? And so we'd set these ambushes up along these trails. And nobody ever walked into this ambush. It was really, really unreal. And the 3rd night of experiencing this, we set into this 360, and we were in elephant grass that was about 6 or 7 feet high. And I heard the loudest screech that you can possibly imagine. It was ear-splitting. And it was a tiger that had been following us, and he was only about 20 feet away. And I think he was about to make a move and hit one of us inside this little perimeter. The guy I was with knew a bit about big game. I mean, he used to hunt big game and so on. And he said that he was pretty sure this thing was about to hit us. And after he roared, we all sort of fired, but he had run away by that point. But we could tell it was a tiger because he had urinated in the grass around us to mark territory. And as I mentioned in the book, It smelled like movie popcorn. Most distinct odor you've ever smelled, just like buttered popcorn. And when you came across that odor, you knew that a tiger was there, and it was a male, and he was marking his turf, outlining exactly what his hunting grounds were. And we happened to be evidently right in the middle of his hunting grounds.
Really?
Yeah, and that's why he had been tracking us.
That's one thing you do not expect when you go into combat is that in addition to the enemies, you have to worry about tigers.
Not only tigers, my friend, but you had snakes over there. They called two-steppers, which were like krites. They wouldn't bite you. They chew through the soft tissue in your hand or so when you were asleep. So you never even knew you were being bitten, and they could kill you in that way. You had bubonic plague, same plague that killed 1/3 of Europe back in 13th century. That came off of rats. The rats were the size of small cats, and if you were asleep at night in some of these base camps, and you happened to drop food on you, these rats would come up and they would get on your chest, whatever, and eat this food, and sometimes eat right through your uniform. They were huge. They had a lot of problems with that up at Quezon.
Yeah.
And Army had a lot of problems with that down at Chu Chi and other places like that, where they had these big bases and where you had food that didn't quite get buried the way it should get. And so you really had to watch out for plague. We had, I think there was something like 15 or 20 men who died over there from plague, even though you got plague shots before you left.